It's such a pleasure to introduce a friend of mine, a real conservative and a real patriot, our neighbor from over in Tyler County. Let's all give a good hand of applause to James White. Come on, buddy.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. How y'all doing there today? I want to thank the East Texas Tea Parties for having me out. And just real quickly, just going to put a few things on your heart. The same spirit in 1776 that brought about this momentous date 234 years ago is the same spirit that brings us here today in Jasper in 2010. Times have changed, but the grievances are the same. Then as now, Americans had a government that engaged in profligate spending, that threatened to subjugate future generations to financial bondage. Then, Americans had a series of taxes: the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Revenue Act, the Tea Act, and others that attempted to punish the most productive. Today, the American government imposes a string of taxes: the income tax, the gross margins tax, the sin tax, the sales tax, the excise tax, health care tax, and they do it only to satisfy the insatiable thirst for the people's wealth in order to buy votes. As then with the Quartering Act, Americans are confronted with a government that has contempt for property rights, with such schemes as the Texas Trans Corridor, the perversion of the power of eminent domain, and excessive valuations by appraisal districts throughout the state of Texas. Leading up to 1776, the American people owed allegiance to a government that failed to protect its citizens among the frontier regions. Today, Americans have a national government that not only neglects its sovereign duty to secure its international borders, but joins with foreign governments to sue its citizens for doing what it arrogantly refuses to do. As the Coercive Acts in 1774, our government has devised a regulatory scheme that tramples over constitutional rights, strangles the American entrepreneurial spirit. Above all, as during our colonial era, Americans faced a threat to the ultimate means to confront tyranny when British soldiers marched to Concord and Lexington. Today, year after year, Americans are forced into costly legal battles to affirm their right to bear arms, only to breathe a sigh of relief after having those rights upheld by only one vote on the Supreme Court. In our colonial period, we shared an allegiance to a national government in London. Although trampling over the rights of the people, with taxation without representation, and just plain old absentee governance, it only exacerbated the physical distance between the mother country and the colonies. Today, along with 49 other states, we share an allegiance to a national government. Though on the same continent with 47 other states, the people only have a record level of alienation and disgust. This national government overpromises but underdelivers. Washington, D.C. undertaxes, overspends, but underperforms. This federal government overregulates but underprotects. And now in its quiver of suppression, it sues. But there is one difference in the eras. In our founding era, we had local governments that were willing to stand between the overreach of a national government and the individual rights of the governed. However, today, our state and local governments are either complicit in their disregard for the people's rights or sheepishly fade away at the knock of the federal government. So therefore, what is the spirit? The spirit of 76, which we celebrate today. It's simple. It's the spirit of had enough. As then, today, we meet here with one resounding response. We have had enough. Had enough. Americans will not allow this government to consign our children's children, some of which yet even to be born, to be slaves of financiers and central banks of Central Asia. Had enough. The American people are a people of faith, innovation, rugged individualism, and hard work. Yet we have a vice president that tells the American people, after spending $800 billion in a so-called stimulus, there is no possibility to restore the 8 million jobs lost over the last 2 years. And then you have a Treasury Secretary who could not even calculate his taxes correctly with the aid of a software program that the world economically cannot depend much on the United States as it has in the past. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. President and Mr. Secretary. That is not your job. We've had enough. It is not your job. It is not your job to determine the height or the breadth of the American spirit. To both of them, shut up. Stop spending. Stop taxing. Stop the borrowing. Get out of the way, and the American people will create the jobs, Mr. Secretary.